What's up, people? I am back for another video doing Hellraiser or Hellbound Hellraiser 2, the second of the Hellraiser series. In my opinion, this is probably my favorite one. As much as I love the original, granted, there's like one part I don't really like, but aside from that, I really love this movie. I like that we get just a taste almost like of Pinhead's backstory. Like we see how like Elliot Spencer becomes Pinhead, and that whole scene was fucked, man. I'm not gonna lie, the violence in this is fucked, bro. Like there's just some scenes where I'm just like, even for me, I'm like, oof. But like they really went all out, I feel like, with like the practical effects and the designs. Even with Shenard, who ends up becoming, he's one of the characters who ends up becoming a Cenobite later on, looks really good. And the characters are pretty good. It was cool that they brought Kirsty back. Unfortunately, this is her last film, at least as Kirsty. I know apparently like the actress comes back in one of the later ones, but she's not Kirsty for some reason. I don't understand why they got rid of her character. That was like one of the weird things about the third movie where apparently she's in it, but it's like clearly a shot she probably filmed during this. Because I think the third one's in like the 90s or like the early 90s, and you could tell like the time difference. But so I always felt like it was weird that because she could have been like your Laurie Strode or your Nancy Thompson of this franchise, So that was always felt like a weird decision to me to get rid of her. I know she's in like the comics and stuff, but it's like, why get rid of her in the movies? I don't know if the actual actress just never wanted to come back. It could have been that. It could have just been some behind the scenes thing I don't know about. But besides the point, I like that she does come back. I really love this psychiatric hospital setting. In general, I think that always makes for a good setting for horror. It just works. And then, how a lot of these patients know what the lament configuration is and them using the box. We actually, the other cool thing is learning about Leviathan. I love the design and just when they go into basically the box world almost, and it's like this labyrinth setting. It's like, it fucking is great. Like they really went all out with the design, in my opinion, the set design in general. Like, and you could tell they definitely had a bigger budget. I mean, just with like the set design and some of the better effects. I really thought it was a good idea to have. It's almost like a reverse role now. Julie is in the Frank role, because she comes back, and Shenard starts feeding her patients. But I also like that they do it in a way where it's not just a flat out rip off of the first one or just a retread of the first one. They actually still try to do it in this interesting way. And yeah, all around. And then just as an awesome movie. The only part I don't really like is when Shenard kills like the Cenobites. I thought that was stupid. I think it would have been better if they had found because it was cool, like because you had Julie realize that Pinhead is Elliot. And that's before I go into that. I really do like that they didn't go too into his backstory. I know in the third one, I think they go a bit more into it, but they don't they save it. So at least this one, you just know who he is before he became Pinhead, but that's the most you know. You don't know like what his life was before. I think they do go into that in the third one, if I remember right. But I think it was smart to not do that in this. And it's interesting that, yeah, Pinhead's not in this one a lot. Granted, I thought he had an awesome entrance. That's the one thing Doug Bradley, at least, is the way he plays Pinhead with such presence, and it's just the lack of, it's just so way better than in the fucking reboot. I'm gonna always take a shot at the reboot pointing that out, but Doug Bradley did such a good job. Like, he's still, for the scenes he's in, and I didn't mind the new girl. The girl who knew how to like solve the box and stuff. I thought she was an interesting character, even though she kind of reminded me of Kirsten a little bit from Nightmare 3. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of Nightmare, because the psychiatric hospital part is the part where I'm like, this does feel a little Nightmare 3. That's the only aspect, though. I'm not necessarily saying it's a ripoff or anything, but to be fair, I think psychiatric hospital is a great setting. And yeah, This one's great. And it's, I would definitely say, watch Hellraiser 2 after the first one. Like, right after. It's like watching Halloween 2 right after Halloween 1. It's that same effect. Like, this one goes into it perfectly. Unfortunately, like, because I think in one of the original scripts, apparently her dad actually does come back, but the actor Andrew Robinson, who I recognize him, he was in Child's Play 3. He didn't want to come back for whatever reason. So you only, if you do see your dad, I think he's like you just see him as like just like a skinless thing, kind of like similar to Frank. So overall, I really like this movie. I think this is a perfect sequel. Even though I should have thought of this weeks ago when I did my favorite horror sequels, so this definitely would have been up there. I think this is a perfect horror sequel. So, but 9.5 out of 10. I think this is a perfect continuation. Unfortunately, this is where it basically peaks. Unfortunately, the franchise. I think 3, I remember thinking was just dumb fun. You know, in the vein of like a Jason X, where I just watch Pinhead just kind of fuck people up. That's more what that film was. So I'll be reviewing that one next week. We'll see if my opinion changes, because I'll admit this was like, I think 3 or 4 years ago when I watched this. So tomorrow, it won't be a review, but I will do a video about, I want to do a rant, because I'm so over not sarcastic, I guess that too, but like snarky characters specifically. Like, I'm not saying they can't exist, but this form of character has been spammed for like the last, I really would say, I'd almost say really since, really, I would say, I'm going to say it, people can get pissy, the MCU. I think not just them, but they're the ones who made that kind of style. But before, at least, not every character was snarky, but now everything and every character has to be snarky now. Like, it has to be spam now. Like, you can't, it's like, I feel like I want to go off about this, so I'll be talking about this more tomorrow. But, yeah, this is something I've kind of just been thinking about, like, the last few days. Like, this is just the only form of character we seem to get in, like, everything. You know, the interesting thing that kind of got me to talk about this, and I'm not even going to get the game or anything, but Forspoken. I saw a clip of that, and I'm just like, that's what got me thinking, like, GP, another snarky, fucking sarcastic character. Because that's all we can get now. So I'll be talking about that tomorrow in a video. So I haven't done a video like that in a while, you know, where I just kind of talk about something that's bothering me. So we'll do that. We'll be doing that tomorrow. Yeah, but let's start on Hellraiser 2. But yeah, let's get started. So the movie opens up. We get this awesome, like, you see Elliot. He's this soldier who ends up solving the box, but he ends up basically getting all becoming Pinhead. This whole scene was great. And this is such an awesome way to kick off the film, too. Like, it really sets the tone. Like, okay, this shit's gonna go crazy. Because the first one goes pretty crazy with the violence, but I feel like this one definitely amps it up. So, Kirsty is now in a mental hospital, because basically what happened in the second one, in the first one, where she's like talking about her dad and that they don't believe her. Essentially, it's kind of like that kind of deal. And Shinard is testing her, and then he's actually pretty, because in reality, he's very fascinated with the lament configuration. So he has one of his patients cut himself on a bed, which is the same bed and mattress from the first movie. So he does, or the patient does, and then they end up getting killed. When Julie comes back, who I thought she was great. She was awesome as like the secondary antagonist of the movie. Because her and Shenard are basically like the two antagonists. Shenard almost becomes the main one later on when he becomes the Cenobite. But she's like I would say she's basically the antagonist for like the first half, essentially. For like the first chunk of the movie. So, and then we kind of get like the similar thing. She starts using Shenard to kind of get what she wants. So similar like to the first movie, he starts feeding her patients so she can start growing her skin back. One of I think Shenard's like assistants actually starts believing her because I think he walks in and sees Julie like in her flesh form. He tries to get her get Kirsty out. And they get out of the thing, but before they can get out, Julie, now fully in human form minus her back, manages to convince him to come in the room. She ends up killing him by kissing him, and basically now she's fully back. And she attacks Kirsty, and they end up kidnapping Tiffany. That's the girl's name. The girl who gets solved the box. So I think she was an interesting character. Throughout the movie. So they end up using her to solve the box. They want to get into the world so they can get into Leviathan. So she ends up doing that. This is where we get Pinhead. And throughout the film, Kirsty starts realizing that Elliot Spencer is Pinhead. Because she finds like a book or like a thing that has like all this information. And I really just like the little things you get throughout this movie that tell the story, but it's not like and it's not exposition dump either, like how they do it nowadays, where you just gotta exposition everything. And because like this, I should have talked about this really quick before that guy died. When he walked in, you just see all these bodies hanging. Like they really went into detail with the set design, I feel like, in the second one compared to the first one. Because the first one's like mainly in the house, and then you get that one scene in the hospital. But yeah, it's mainly in that house for the most part. You know, and then the couple shots where you see in the beginning where they're getting the box. But this one is definitely, they have way more, like this one, you could tell had a bigger budget. And I think they really went all out. Because I love Pinhead's entrance when he first comes in. The music, that's the thing I need to talk about too. The music is fucking amazing. I gotta say, I almost like rewatching them, like the music's underrated in Hellraiser. Like it is almost, I'm gonna throw it up there like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, like those franchises that have like a phenomenal score. I'm throwing this up there. Like the score in this is really fucking good. Like I forgot how underrated it is. I'm like, holy shit. Like just even that opening intro is fucking awesome. It's like, holy shit, they really did put it with the music in this. And I don't know why I didn't notice in the first one, but this one I definitely noticed. Like, even just in, like, the regular scenes where the music is just playing is fucking well done. So they end up, Julia and Shenard go into the labyrinth, and my God, I really love, that's like probably my favorite moments in the movie. So Kirsty goes in and try to get, her and Tiffany go in there. And so at this point, Julie turns on Shenard because she has to sacrifice one, including him. So she betrays him and basically betrays him to Leviathan. Is this big diamond-looking thing. Looks fucking awesome. Really well done. So Kirsty ends up losing. Tiffany runs into now fully fleshed Frank, who's about to like kill her before I don't know why my mind went blank. Before Julie comes back and kills him and gets revenge on him. Initially, like she sets like this fire and it basically gets rid of Frank's skin, so now he looks like Frank from the first movie. So she ends up kissing him, and actually, instead of kissing him, she pulls his heart out, so she kills him. while Kirsty and Vicky get away. I said Vicky. Kirsty and Tiffany get away. At this point, Shenard is now fully Cenobite form. She ends up using, I think Tiffany ends up using the box to call Pinhead, who Kirsty tries to explain to him, basically knows who his human identity is. Then, yeah. Actually, before this, at this point, Julie dies because she gets like sucked into this basically dark hole, not dark hole, but like this like dimension, and she ends up, her only thing left is her human skin, which that looked gross, man. They really upped the disgusting in this, in a good way. You know, like, even as someone, like, I can accept most things. Like, they really go hard for film in 1988. And it's crazy. This is like only a year. This is at a time that a lot of horror sequels just came out, like, right after. But, yeah. So, fuck, I don't know why I forgot his name, but the other villain, who is now Shenard. I don't know why my mind went blank again. Shenard comes back. I don't really like the way he kills Pinhead and the other Xenobites. I thought that was stupid. Though it was kind of interesting to see Pinhead go back into like his human form in the costume. It was interesting looking, but I didn't think, if you're gonna beat Pinhead, I didn't like that. So Tiffany ends up finding a way to beat Shenard. I think ends up like using his things against him, and he ends up getting like, I'll admit, he dies pretty gnarly because he has like this thing basically like pulling him, but because his like things like turn into blades, like these tentacles come out, they get stuck on the ground, and because I guess the weight or whatever, this thing tugging on his head just pulls off, like it pulls his head like straight off, like in half. It looks pretty brutal. And then kind of things go back to normal. And then we get a shot of that same homeless guy asking what you're asking for, and then the film ends. I really like it. I really think Hellraiser 2 is a solid sequel, a phenomenal one. Watch it right after the first one. I think every time, like, it just, there's such a good double watch. It sucks that Kirsty doesn't really come back after this. I don't understand. She was such an interesting character. You could have built more off of, but then she's just gone. I don't know if the actual actress just didn't want to come back until, because I know in one of the later ones, and when I mean one of the later ones, I think one of the ones that came out like in the aughts. So it was a while. So I don't know, maybe just the time of Hellraiser 3, she just didn't want to do it. I don't know. I'll look into it for sure before I review and talk about it in the review for Hellraiser 3. But yeah, I definitely really like this one. I really love this design. The music is so fucking good. In like every scene, the music just stands out. I love Pinhead in this, even though he's not in it a lot. I really like Julie. I think Claire Higgins, I think is her name. She did a really good job as Julie in this. Like, I actually think she's better in this than the first movie. I really enjoyed her as like the first chunk of the villain. Shenard was fine. I really did like his design as a Xeno. I don't like that he killed Pinhead. I think Pinhead deserved a better send-off than that, at least for this movie. And I know he comes back. There's a third movie, but it's just like, come on. Something else. You could have beat him some other way. But it was cool learning his backstory for like a second, like how he became Pinhead. That was cool. And the way they were able to take the story. And even, they did kind of an element similar to the first movie. Instead, it's Julie now, but they still did it different enough where it isn't just a straight-up retread. So, all around, Hellraiser 2 is a perfect sequel. I definitely say watch it. If you're going to watch Hellraiser, watch Hellraiser 1 and 2. Even if you don't watch the other movies, because maybe enough people have just said, the later ones just suck. Because I can understand the argument, make the argument, maybe say 1 and 2 are like the main canon ones, and then just kind of the other ones can just be just dumb fun. But I can accept that argument, because 1 and 2 definitely work as a duology in a way. Because even the way this one ends could almost end the story fine. I'm fine with 3. I have to rewatch it, but I'm cool with it for the most part. I remember thinking that was more of a dumb fun one. I remember the specific scene where there's like a party, I think, or it's like dance or something. and Pinhead just shows up and like fucking kills everybody. Like that was one of those like you kind of just turn your brain off, but it's a dumb fun slasher. So at least I can kind of enjoy that one as that. But I'm kind of content with like the main story being the first two movies in a way. I mean, to be fair, I haven't seen some of the later ones. Maybe 4 won't be that bad to me for all I know. So we'll see. Got a few more weeks. We got several more weeks, honestly, of this. So we'll see. But tomorrow, gonna be doing that video about being over snarky characters because I am over it now. Like, there's just a lot of trends I'm over. I'll probably do a couple videos on those eventually because I could definitely. There's a lot, you know. But that's definitely one of them. Like, this is such a trend. Like, I would argue it started with the MCU, but then all these other companies, and not even just movie companies, even just like video game companies are doing it. Where you have to have, and the thing was, yeah, you had snarky characters back then, but I think it's not even just snarky characters. I think it's the way they're being done too, because I think there is snarky characters who can be done in a way and be likable. Iron Man. I mean, granted, it's a Buffy example. But Spike, he's snarky as fuck, and he's likable. You can make snark work, but I also think they overdo it, too. But also, every fucking character has to be snarky, too. I think that's the main problem I'm having. It's like, it's almost like a checklist or a tick box they have to tick. Oh, we have to have a snark character just because. You know, because Robert Downey Jr. did it so good, now we gotta just do it in everything now. But it's also just do it in a way where it's not done well, and it's just done to be and it's in a way where they're just straight up unlikable. Because I think there is a thin line between snarky in a good way and then just being a straight up asshole and unlikable. Anyway, I'll go more into that tomorrow. Because that is a trend that I kind of want to go into. So we'll talk about that. Watch Hellraiser 2 if you haven't. I think it's a phenomenal sequel. I'd even say just sit down and listen to the soundtrack. The fucking music. I might even do that tonight before I go to bed. I just think the score is so good. So, but anyway. Cheers, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Fuck Joe Biden. Fuck all the hairs. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.